What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Nathan, and on this planet we send it. Where we're going to be, our project for the day is actually doing a review of my garage floor and the epoxy that I laid down on it. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a couple of clips here just to kind of refresh those or introduce to those who haven't seen this before, how I basically went through and cleaned it all up, and then I sort of went above and beyond the required instructions of Rust-Oleum and just basically sent it and just did some hardcore cleaning of the floor, and then after that I had to go ahead and do some epoxy a concrete fix in preparations for the epoxy itself. And then yeah, the transformation was just absolutely awesome. So what we're going to be doing in this video is just doing a review on where things stand. So let's go ahead and head into the garage and let's send it. All right, so the first thing what we need to do is go ahead and sort of clean up the floor. So I'm going to go ahead and set you up on a tripod, and I'm going to go ahead and clean the floor so we can have a good look at what the floor is looking like without obstruction. So in preparation for this video, I've already been removing a lot of the things off the floor, just or at least moving them off away from the wall so that I can get the air mover behind them and just blow out the dust. What I'm going to be doing in this video that's different, or I should say what I haven't yet done on this, so it's going to be a learning experience for both of us, is actually take a mop to the floor and see how well it cleans up or doesn't. First thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just blow it out with the air mover, and then we're going to go ahead and mop it. All right, let's go ahead and send it. All right, well, that's absolutely one of the things that I really enjoy about the epoxy floor is how easy this thing just cleans up. If I wasn't setting up to do all these different clips to show you guys the different areas, I could easily do this in about 30 seconds, tops 1 minute, just completely just blow everything out and it's done. All right, so now we're gonna get onto the part with the wet wash that I haven't yet done before, so we're gonna see how easy things clean up or they don't clean up. All right, let's go ahead and send it. All right, so before we get into the review, I want to go over one alibi and one safety. All right, the alibi. I was not planning to use a mop that was more dirtier than the floor itself. So as we went around here, if it looks like it's still a little dirty, I basically spent about 20-30 minutes trying to go ahead and clean it up. I think if I would have had the right equipment, basically just a regular sort of rag mop with the and use soap. I also only used water. Some of the things, it would probably look a lot better. All right, now let's go ahead and get into the safety. This is not an advertisement for my sandals, but it is to show you that these things are super slick. And as you can see, I just mopped and I'm walking around on them. So what I'm doing is I'm accepting the risk, because an epoxy floor, as you can see the shine here, when it's wet, it's real slippery. And I chose not to put the grit in there. And so if I fall, then I'm going to show you just how slippery this can be. But just know I am walking around with caution, but I'm also demonstrating the fact that it is possible to walk on here when it is slippery, as long as you're taking the necessary precautions. All right, let's go ahead and move in here on this area, and I want to show you the discoloration. As you can see, you got like all the blue all around here, but then you got some discolored paint flecks here. Now, unfortunately, what happened is, since I left when I originally did this, and my family had to put everything in there instead of me, they put everything in here, and I asked them just to do that. Unfortunately, a paint stripper can fail and started to leak a little bit, so it was probably leaking onto the floor for maybe a month. So this is what happens if you leave paint stripper on your epoxy floor for too long. If I was there when it first happened, I could have cleaned it up, and I guarantee you there would have been no issue. So this next piece that I'm coming in here to show you is that this appears like it failed. And so what I want to highlight to you is this is actually not a failure. If it's a failure of anything, it's a failure on my part, because I dropped a heavy piece of metal, and I'm just showing you this, that just because you put epoxy on, it's not going to make your concrete floor indestructible. I'm showing you right here by my vise, we have another failure. Again, the failure was on my part, to where I dropped something on the floor, and it basically chipped up and definitely dented the concrete too. So what I think is, if you are going to do this and you want to preserve the floor, what I'm probably going to do is buy a rubber mat to go here right by my workbench, so that I can reduce the wear and tear that I'm putting onto the epoxy floor itself. Next thing I want to show you is an attempt to clean up another mistake of mine. If you look here, like around the flakes, you can see some extra, basically like white paint in and around these flakes here. I'm trying to just make sure you guys got a good view of them. Basically, you can see in and around here, there's some paint around there. So the paint, for the most part, came up really good. And I was on it pretty quick. But unfortunately, since the concrete obviously is not perfectly flat, if it gets into the grooves, I'm sure I could have got that out. But since it's not like a hospital floor and it's a garage floor, I wasn't too worried about it. So this was good enough for me. All right, and this is mostly a plug just for Leggari, but I'm taking you to where here at the border here, to where it does get hit in the sun probably about 6 to 7 months of the year. You can see, or maybe you can't, but you'll have to believe me then, I don't see any discoloration from basically the very edge all the way into about like 3 feet here, maybe even 4. So the Leggari UV protection is definitely helping this product. All right, so when I walk onto this floor and I see it still every day, it still makes me just go like, just on how awesome this floor is. And I'm really happy. I am only 1 year into it, and I do need to be upfront with some of you guys. I live here in Southern California, so the weather's not too crazy. I don't bring my vehicles into here. I've only done it like once or twice, definitely not often. So if you're planning to bring in your vehicle into your garage, you might have different results, but so far mine have been near flawless. Again, all the mistakes being mine, the epoxy, the Rust-Oleum epoxy floor, and even the Leggari Top Coat. I didn't mention that at the beginning, but I'll put a link here to the Leggari Top Coat video too. The combination of that is looking absolutely great. And as a matter of fact, what you're going to see me here is I do one last sort of a clean out as I blow everything out. You'll see I have no problem coming in here barefooted, just because of how once it's clean, you have high confidence that it's clean, especially after you blow it out with the air blower. And I didn't slip while making these clips, so again, I'm not saying that it's not slippery, but it is possible to walk in here when the floor is just very wet. I just got to the point, I am now walking around barefooted, got to the point to where my sandals were dirtier than the floor, and so it just wasn't helping. But all right, let's go ahead and do one last blowout. We'll go ahead and wrap it up.
It's always you, it's always you, it's It's always you. 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 Keep falling for you. Keep falling for you.
All right, that's going to go ahead and wrap up this video. You know, I will mention that I'm back in my sandals now because since the chickens were out here, I feel less comfortable or less confident walking around barefooted in my grass than I did in the garage, just to sort of give you some perspective. But if I was going to put sort of a final review or a recommendation on whether you should do these, I do the epoxy floor in your garage. I absolutely think it's worth it and doing it by DIY. It does take a lot of time. If you've seen the videos, you know it takes a lot of time, but as long as you take the time to do it right, it'll come out good. Now, chances are I could have a failure in the next month or two, and if it does, I'm going to go ahead and do another video. But as of right now, everything is just looking great. I'm very pleased with it. I'm so happy that I did that. Not only just because of, you know, it does raise the property value, but mostly just because of the utility and the comfort that I feel when I'm actually now working in the garage, and especially on how easy things do clean up. I didn't mention that, but when I do have most spills, as long as I take care of it right then, things just clean up really well. So absolutely recommend doing it if you're thinking about doing it. But anyways, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next one.